Um, so with that, welcome everyone. Good evening. And so pleased that you're here for our very first Share Your Story, Change the World Speaker Showcase. I'm Alan Cohen, speaking coach and your host tonight. And as, as it's been said, sharing stories is both an act of courage and an act of generosity. And I'm so incredibly proud of the speakers you're going to hear tonight, who are both courageous and generous. And I have had the pleasure of working with them over the past few months on their stories, but they did the work themselves. They dug deep. They found the stories that best conveyed the messages that they wanted to express. And it was hard, soul-searching work, stretching each of them out of their comfort zone and stretching them each in different ways, and building their confidence along the way. So I'll talk a little bit about my group program, Share Your Story, Change the World, in a bit. But tonight, enough of me talking. Tonight is their night, and tonight is your night. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker, Yaciel Ramirez. And Yaciel, I'm going to give you the spotlight.
Thank you everyone for being here tonight. I'm ready to start whenever you guys are.
Take a breath and let's go.
I'm not supposed to be here. I am not supposed to be here. These are words that have echoed loudly throughout many parts of my life. I'm not supposed to be here. On this Zoom call, giving this presentation. So how and why did I end up here? The why, I'll share with you later. I was born on November 10, 1996 in Cuba. My mother, Yoilan, she was 15 at the time when she became pregnant with me. And in the 90s, racism was still at large. Her parents were totally against the fact that she was dating and had a romantic connection to a Black man, my father, Alex. On a random day, during the early stages of my mom's pregnancy, my grandmother decided to take my mother to get a medical checkup. As my mother described it, the place looked like your typical OB's office. She was already sitting on the medical chair when a young nurse entered the room and asked my mother how far along she was. Just a few weeks, she said with enthusiasm, but I can't wait to hold the little baby in my arms, she responded. Noticing my mother's enthusiasm, the nurse gave her a puzzled look. You're here to abort the baby, aren't you? The nurse asked. No, I'm here to see how the baby is doing. What do you mean I'm here to abort the baby? My mother was pretty disgruntled. Sweetie, this is an abortion clinic, said the nurse. Before the nurse could say another word, my mom had already stormed out of the room. After this, at just 15 years of age, my mother gave my grandmother an ultimatum. Either she chose to accept her love for my father, or she would never hear from her again, and she would miss out on the chance to be a part of her grandson's life. I'm not supposed to be here. We all have defining moments in our life that alter the course of it forever. For me, one of those moments occurred on December 6, 2006. I'm 10 years old. I'm seated on an airplane, flying from Cuba. I'm leaving behind Miami. I'm excitedly escaping a life of poverty and hunger to come to America. The airplane was small. It can't have more than 40 people in it. Yet it was the only airplane I had ever been inside of, so it felt immense to me. By now, my father, Alex, he was 30, and my mother, Yoilen, she was 26, just 1 year younger than I am currently. They're sitting behind me, feeling the nerves of starting from zero at such a young age in a totally different country than the one that they had grown up in. Till this day, it feels like I'm in a movie. None of it feels real. I've now left behind a country that few are lucky enough to leave. We arrived at the Miami International Airport, and what I remember felt like a grocery trip like a trip to the grocery store. Just the landing strip alone was 10 times bigger than the airport that we took off from. So, how is this place so big? Who built it? Why are there so many cars? Why are the roads so wide? Why does everything look so clean? I asked my parents at least 100 questions in a matter of minutes. Arriving in the US changed my life for the better, but any change is hard, especially when you're very young. From the airport, we're taken to a smaller apartment complex in West Miami. There, we were greeted by relatives of mine that live here. They were saying things to me that I didn't understand. Just a few months after we arrived on this strange new planet, I'm placed in elementary school where I must repeat fourth grade. I had left Cuba as a fifth grader. Later, I find out that this is done for my own benefit in order to help me get used to the educational system in America. I'm placed in ESOL classes in order to learn English. The other kids, they constantly laugh at me every time I mispronounce something. The teachers, they would force me to say things in English, such as asking for permission to use the bathroom. And I genuinely think they're only trying to embarrass me. I complain to my mom every single day about how much I hate my new life. I'm not supposed to be here. Over time, I start feeling like I needed to show everyone what I could do. I was determined to take advantage of the opportunity that my parents had given me. So I go on to excel in my studies through the remainder of my years in high school. Heck, I even graduated top 5% of my class, and I obtained full ride scholarships to Florida International University. However, as life would have it, a lot of things began to change when I matured and began facing the realities of life. It's now April of 2017. I'm young, I'm energetic, I'm a 20-year-old college sophomore. I feel like I have the world in the palm of my hands. My only goal at this point in time is to become wealthy in order to provide for my future family and give myself the fine things in life. I have recently obtained a property damage claims adjuster license because I saw that it brought success to a few friends. I'm also a full-time estimator at the firm that I work for. Fast forward to September of 2017, Hurricane Irma made landfall in Miami. And it's time. It's time for me to put my knowledge to the test and see what I'm made of. I remember wanting to sign up only 10 clients in order to buy myself a Ford Mustang, just 20-year-old things. Before I even knew it, 10 clients turned into 20, 20 turned into 40, 40 turned into 80, 80 turned into 100. And simultaneously, I'm also taking on 5 college classes in order to maintain my scholarships. And to add on top of that, I'm in a 4-year relationship. Life pretty much became a relentless cycle of signing up clients, doing estimates, attending classes, doing homework. It was a grueling routine for 4 or 5 months, Monday through Sunday. At just 21 years of age, overworking leads to weight loss, depression, a negative view of life. My relationship suffers given that the only thing that I can talk about is work, which eventually led to my relationship's end. Fast forward to 24 years of age. I've achieved the lifestyle that I've always dreamed of. I have everything that I could ever want. A high-rise condo with a view, a luxury car, trips to Miami's finest nightclubs are frequent. Yet, on a typical summer morning, I wake up not remembering what had taken place the night before. This was now completely normal to me. Partying and spending my money recklessly is pretty much all I do. I literally remember staring at the high-rise buildings around me, and it was summer, yet I felt cold and lonely. What's going on? I'm living a life that so many people my age desperately covet, yet I feel dead inside. As I stand there, I just think to myself, I'm not supposed to be here. It's exactly at this moment that I realize that I have been looking at life through the wrong lens. The money I'm making is great. It's incredible. But where's the sense of meaning? Where's the sense of purpose? I pretty much spent the remainder of that year just aimlessly wandering through life, just asking myself, is this all there is? Is this all that I'm meant for? At this point in time, my father has been running an electrical business by himself. He's doing well, but the fact that he is an immigrant kept on getting in his way. As he has always described it, his articulate English speaking son is the missing piece of the puzzle that is going to take his business to the next level. I hesitated for a while. Truthfully speaking, growing up, the idea of being an electrician never really caught my interest. But being a business owner, that's a risk worth taking on. So here we are, 17 years later, after our arrival in this country, fighting for our American dream as a family. I no longer dread the day ahead. I now wake up knowing that everything I do is for the future of my family. And what better honor than to give back to my parents who sacrificed life as they knew it for my siblings and I. So why am I here? Right? Now we get to the good part. I'm here to tell you that success is a double-edged sword. Everything comes with a cost. Everything comes with a cost. And financial success, while it provides material desires and it can give you things that you never thought were possible, it can also bring loneliness. It can bring anxiety. It can bring depression. Right now, at 27 years of age, my goal is to understand the importance of balance and find a more profound meaning in life. So, through this story, I hope to inspire those in the audience, those people that are out there seeking financial success. And I hope it makes you reflect on what truly brings happiness. I would invite you to dig deep and ask yourself, why do I do what I do? And it's okay if you don't know the answer. It took me years to figure out which direction I want to take in my life. And honestly, who knows? That decision might actually change as I get older. However, I no longer concern myself with that thought because it was thanks to those moments of confusion, those moments of depression, those moments of loneliness that I've come to the realization that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so are you. Thank you.
Give it up.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
right. Next up, remove the spotlight and give you the spotlight. So next up is Dila Zhuraeva to inspire us with her story. The microphone's yours.
I was a sexist. I was a racist. I was a bigot. Are you hearing this? But I have changed. A series of bad events forever transformed me. Now you all might be rolling your eyes here. Here we go again with another diversity, equity, and inclusion talk. But hear me out, please. My journey from bias to bridge builder is like going from being trapped in a dark cave to standing on top of the mountain, bathing in the sunlight. Seeing two sides of the story helped me truly understand bias, but most importantly, the freedom that comes from recognizing bias within ourselves and doing something about it. But what is even diversity, equity, inclusion? Those buzzwords we hear all the time. Well, let's use metaphors. Diversity is a beautiful garden with a variety of different flowers of all races, cultures, and backgrounds. Equity is giving each flower what it needs to bloom, not just treating it all the same. And inclusion means nurturing every flower regardless of differences, whatever those might be. But what does it mean in real life? A simple example, we're all adults here. Imagine you are an owner of an apartment building. Following the diversity principle, you'll make sure that your apartment building is applicable for everyone, that everyone can apply to live there. With the inclusion principle, you will promote your apartment to everyone equally, regardless of the neighborhood that people live in currently, regardless of their background. With the equality principle, you will install not just stairs, but ramps for people with different abilities, and we'll think about all the inclusivity there. But I wasn't always a champion of diversity, equity, inclusion. I didn't always have the grasp for these concepts. In fact, I was quite the opposite. A weed choking out the garden of humanity. I was a racist, a sexist, and a bigot, even though I was born in a multicultural family in Tajikistan, lived in Russia, Turkey, Finland, and traveled the world. I know those are strong words, but they are true. And I'm not ashamed because admitting them was an important first step on my DEI path. They are my past, but not my present or future. I was a racist, sexist, and a bigot, not because I was born that way or because I choose to be that way. It was because of my upbringing, my surroundings, and my education, or the lack of thereof. I was a racist because the only Black people I've seen in my life were in some American movies like Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood, or songs from bands like DMX or Wu-Tang Clan that I religiously translated without speaking English. The media portrayed Black people as violent, criminal, and uneducated, and reinforced the stereotypes and prejudices that I had learned from my society and parents. I was a sexist because in my patriarchal Tajik culture, women had no voice, no choice. A woman's purpose in life, the meaning, was simply to be married off, have children, and obey her husband. I never once questioned this rotten root because it was all I knew. Most of the women in my life didn't have any say in the most basic decisions of their lives. And I was a bigot. because at home and at school, it was normal to judge and mock people around us. The homeless for being lazy, people with intolerances or disabilities for being weak or snowflakes, the wealthy people for being corrupt liars and thieves. I never learned their stories, their struggles, their humanity. To me, they were just ugly labels, categories, and stereotypes. But what changed, you ask? Some hate-filled events that absolutely shattered my worldview like a stone crashing through a stained glass window. I lost loved ones to violence. It was a brutal wake-up call that scraped away my prejudices and forced me to confront the ugliness within myself. I was beaten and raped because of my Tajik name, Dilaram Hon Jurayeva Sultan Aliyevna, because of the shape of my eyes, because of where I was born, simply for being me. From a young age, bullying and abuse were constant, no matter how smart, hardworking, or kind I tried to be. The way I looked, my name, my place of birth, my parents, my accent, that was enough to deem me less than, not enough, not equal. Not just me, but my parents. They lost everything after we moved the countries and were stripped of dignity because of their background when we moved from one place to another. And the final drop was a young man was killed, his body covered with 27 stab wounds, left as a hatred-soaked statement right outside the mosque where he was praying. Despite countless witnesses, his nationalist skinhead killers went unpunished, because as the authorities would say, a dirtbag immigrant like him didn't deserve justice. That young man was my brother Bahram. He will never have what we have, life. He died because there weren't enough people caring about diversity, equity, inclusion on that street that day to stop his killers in the daylight. But you don't have to endure trauma to embrace DEI. You don't have to go through this to realize what we're doing. We all carry unconscious biases, every human on earth. It's normal. But the path to overcoming them starts with a simple exercise. And I would love to invite all of you in the room to join me here. Close your eyes now for a moment. Look within. What assumptions and prejudices can you find brewing inside you? Can you find those roots? Where do they come from? What stereotypes do you have? Confront them. Pull them into the light. It all starts with you. It all starts with each of us. Diversity, equity, inclusion can change the world if we stop treating it like a marketing buzzword and start treating it like a life-giving truth. Ask yourself, what if I am someone else's dam? I have a friend who used to dislike Indians for being dirty, loud, and causing overpopulation, who now asks herself, what if I am someone else's Indian? And feels the sting of that prejudice herself. One powerful question sparked a huge shift within her mind. And I would love for you to ask yourself, what if you are someone else's Indian? What if you are someone else's Black? What if you are someone else's Arab, feminist, gay, millennial, boomer? Fill your blank. Let it sink in and discover how it feels. But why bother, you'd say? I don't see any problem. Well, because in today's world, diversity, equity, inclusion is no longer a choice. It's an absolute must for thriving. It's the right thing to do, of course, to respect all humans with dignity regardless of anything. But it's also the smart thing to do, as diverse teams perform better. We're all adults here. We all need to pay bills. And simply said, studies after studies have proven that diversity, equity, and inclusion brings you more money, regardless if you're a business owner, individual contributor, manager, or self-employed. It's also a necessary thing to do for the world's future. It might sound cheesy, homey, naive, but I honestly believe that DEI can save the world from so many angles. We all must start caring about the diversity, equity, and inclusion if we want a better future for our children. So let's forget about policies, politics, news, rallies, social media, and speeches. The real work starts really small. Notice your own actions. Notice your own thoughts. Next time you say or hear a joke, think about it from the DEI lens. Next time you pick a book or a movie, can you expand horizon and go beyond Hollywood and get out of your comfort zone? Next time you make a new friend, how different they are from you. Do they look the same? Do they sound the same? Do they have the same opinions with you? Do you let yourself to be outside of your own borders? Do you discover the diversity? Do you include the different? Do you challenge the status quo? Do it for yourself and do it for others. Make decisions that are truly equitable. You have nothing to lose and absolutely everything to gain, because at its core, diversity, equity, inclusion is about building bridges of understanding, one new connection at a time. I will be sharing with you more resources after our discussion today, but please feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to chat about this more or have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dila, for that incredible incredible storytelling, and your vulnerability, and for your offer to share resources with everyone, which we'll be emailing around to everyone tomorrow, so you can get in touch with any of the speakers and with your questions. Just beautiful, beautiful job. So thank you. Thank you. Taking us on that journey with you. So with that, our next speaker is Mr. Eric LaCour. Going to put you in the spotlight, something completely different, different mood, and looking forward to hearing your story.
Thank you. All right. Today we were bombarded on the average of about 10,000 images per day, depending on how much you scroll, of course. But the thing that breaks my heart the most is, after being a photographer for 20, 25 years, is I'm not sure enough people really understand how manipulative images can be. A deep realization of this was when I moved to California from Louisiana for the first time. I was digging through my closet and started second guessing if I was making the right decision. And then I came across these pictures of beaches, and these beautiful pictures of beaches and surfers, and I realized I'd been, it made me realize that I was making the right decision when I found these at the bottom of my closet. So I go out there all excited, but I end up visiting the same beach that I'd seen in the photos. And it was then that I had this deep realization that they had cropped a lot of stuff out. There were things that were dirty. There were dilapidated windows, buildings. And that was the deep realization that just a simple twist of a frame or the change of lighting could really make something look a lot different. Just like now, you can look at me, it looks like my room is organized, but the rest of it could be a mess. Looking at that set even though it wasn't a movie, it made me really think of that saying, smoke and mirrors. It was deceptive. And this could be used for good things or it could be bad. And I like to put these under two different categories. I call it manipulation versus inspiration. A deeper learning of manipulation came at the time when 2008 hit. I woke up on this beautiful morning in my loft studio and I see my wife next to me. I see my kid, a chocolate lab, who all I wanted to do was take care of. I just want to be someone that they could depend on. But stress was flowing through my veins because I knew that the bills were due. I had a stack of them. So I immediately got on the phone and I'm pacing back and forth in my studio, passing photo equipment, old clothing with covered in plastic from past shoots. I started calling clients that I'd been working with for over the past 3 years, and one by one, they told me they had figured something out. They figured out another way of doing what they were doing, or they found someone cheaper. During the same time, I was working with modeling agencies. And I thought it was always funny because they had this thing called testing. And I was like, can't I just look at the picture of who we're shooting and know what they look like? And it wasn't long before I realized that they wanted you to come meet the people in person because they knew more than anyone that photos can lie. So as I'm making these calls in 2008, I go to my friend's house right down the street. I'd borrowed some photo equipment from him. And as I'm returning, he hands me this application for a reality show. At the time, I was really a purist. You know, I was only going to be behind the camera. I wanted to be in control of everything. I was very particular. I wanted attention to the details. There was no way I was giving that up for somebody else to manipulate images of me. But considering the situation, I was considering it. So I applied. Next thing you know, I'm on casting after another. It was nerve-wracking to put yourself in front of the camera. It was totally different. The first casting was a little bit of more of just a one-on-one interview. Wasn't too bad. Made it to the next shoot, but this reality show was for photographers to compete with models. So they wanted to see what it was like if you were to photograph models, not to mention with a whole set of video crew. I don't remember who told me this, but at the time someone said, dude, just focus on what you're good at. Just focus what you're doing in the moment. And I said, okay. So I was able to drown it out. And I was like, man, I can actually do this. And actually, as I was walking off the set of the second casting, one of the assistants ran up to me. He was like, dude, that was amazing. You're one of the best we've seen yet. I hope to see you on the show. Needless to say, I made it onto the show. I was chosen. I was one of 10 photographers out of 100,000 applicants. And we're in this van driving up the Hollywood Hills to this big mansion. I remember reaching to my pocket to find my iPhone 3G. I can remember the smooth edges of it to check to see if my wife had called, and there was no service. So I proceed to go to the first set. They didn't want us knowing what was happening from one moment to the next. This was reality television. So we had to be surprised. The first set, we walked through this gate, and it was then that I saw not 8 people on a set, but 150 people in black, a sea of assistants, 2 cameras, and we're on camera. This is the first time I'm seeing it. I look over, there's 2 or 3 big cameras. Another camera swoops in on a crane over our head. And I just remember telling myself, just focus on what you're good at. See, I'd been photographing for editorial magazines, but also some celebrity stuff. And as the show was going on, I didn't really see much of the other photographers' work. In the beginning, I was pegged as too artistic, but they did use my images behind the host and for promotional materials. And not only that, there were many times where the assistants would look at me and say, dude, you're the best one on the show. There's no way you're losing this. And I was like, I thought they were messing with me. And eventually I see some of the other photographers work. And I was like, this might be a joke because I've been doing this for a long time. And if I'm going to do editorial photography for a major magazine and our prize is to photograph for this magazine, the basic concept to keep people interested in a story of images is to change the background, change the clothing. You keep it interesting from one image to the next. And when I saw their images, they weren't doing these very basic things. So I make it to the final three. Final three people were photographing, and they decide they're going to change it up. It's a change in the system. Instead of showing the people who the name being with the photos, they separated. They said A, B, and C. So they pull out the folder of images and look at A, and they're all look at it, and it's like, A's really good. That was me. They open up B, going through it, and they make us, and this is all on video. They make a gesture and they say, you know, A's better. They open up C, and they look at them for a little bit, and they say, you know, B and C are the kind of, it's probably between B and C that we're going to cut. A is the best one. And then we go to break. It's a little bit longer break than usual. I'm just happy and confident, getting head nods from the assistants. Like even one of them said, man, you know, you got this. I walk out and they cut me. One of the judges, who was obviously on my side, stood up and slammed her hand on the table. She's like, there's got to be a mistake. There's no way that Eric's being cut right now. And I just quietly put my head down, walked out, noticed a couple of the other assistants shaking their head. I found this truck bed outside in the back and just sat on the back of that truck and just analyzing what could have happened. Multiple people came by and said, man, we don't know what happened. There must have been a mistake. The executive producer himself comes up to me and says, Eric, we don't know what happened. There must have been a mistake. And so I looked at him and I said, so you were given this job under the idea that you were going to find a new photographer for this prestigious magazine. And he says, yeah. How do you feel about one of those photographers shooting for the magazine? And his face just dropped. And he walked away without a word. I stayed in contact with the other photographers and some of the models. And when I contacted them, they told me that after I had left, they had veteran photographers helping them on the set. I was like, man, that's interesting. It's like smoke and mirrors, of course. It's obviously not reality TV. But not only that, after the winner wins and she does the shoot for the magazine, and I contacted her on this new app at the time. Everyone had just switched from MySpace and decided to try this new thing called Facebook. And I contacted her on there, and she said, I said, how happy are you with the results? She said, I'm not happy at all. I'm actually trying to sue this magazine. And I was like, well, tell me what happened. She was supposed to shoot for the magazine. She did the shoot. But when the magazine actually came out, it was not her images. It had her name on somebody else's images. Not only was I right the whole time, but this was a deep learning of like the manipulation that can happen, and how reality TV was the opposite of what had happened here. After this catapulted me into a series of work where I was just looking for authenticity. I would photograph people as they really were on the street, pull them out of reality, and photograph what I considered like real fashion, what people were actually wearing in the streets of New York. Eventually, this led me to video work, and my passion now is to find the is to create images of or videos of inspiration of coaches and entrepreneurs who are changing the world. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Eric. Very different story, different kind of storytelling. And who doesn't like a little bit of reality television on a Wednesday night? Anything but real. So I was going to take a little commercial break, but I think instead we're just going to keep going. And next up is my friend Melinda Baum. So Melinda, we're going to put you in the spotlight here. And take a moment if you need a moment.
Hi. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Have you ever wondered about the unseen stories, the untold stories that you,
Melinda, hold
as
on.
a firefighter,
Melinda,
can you not hear me?
sound quality is a little bit off. And I'm wondering, are others having trouble hearing?
It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
might be a connection issue.
it might be a connection issue. I'm wondering, what happens if we all turn our videos off? How creepy is that?
is that better?
That's probably helpful.
We can all turn our
I think it's better, Melinda.
It's not going to make a difference if anybody else turns their video
have
off,
to turn
Ellen.
her-
It's
she has to
just
turn hers off.
her
It's
source.
because-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because I'm out in the middle of nowhere with no internet, and there are storms.
I think it's going okay right this
Better.
second,
Yeah.
though.
I took out my earbuds. I was hoping that
Go for it.
Let's motor through.
right.
Take
You
two.
got this. You got this.
It's theater.
It is. Have you ever wondered about the unseen struggles of those that you walk among? As a firefighter paramedic, when I would make calls, I often wondered what was the story that these people lived? What was I not being told? I often met them on what could be the worst day of their lives, and many of them, it was the worst day of their lives. And little did I know, for some, there were so many untold stories, and some were very sinister. And those stories I didn't know to ask about. And I didn't know the repercussions that they were suffering from. Today, I'd like to share with you a world where courage meets resilience, where adversity speaks louder than fear, where sinister stories lurk in the darkness of those untold stories for them. I'd like you to meet a gentleman I met named Trevor. Trevor was a young man whose resilience and inspiration gave me hope and taught me many things. His strength inspired me. His stories moved me to my most important work, I think, as of yet. Trevor, at the age of 12, like most teenage boys or preteens, started working. But Trevor didn't have a job as a paper boy or babysitting the neighborhood kids. He didn't even mow lawns. No. Trevor was brought into an industry that grosses $150 billion every year. He was brought into an industry that has no cares about any vulnerabilities. He was brought into an industry that didn't care about age, doesn't care about sex, doesn't care about gender identity, and it doesn't care about your social status, nor does it care where you live, because it exists in rural, urban centers, rich and poor neighborhood alike. Yet despite all of that, Trevor was brought into that industry by his own father. You see, Trevor was sold into human trafficking. Trevor was sold into human trafficking by the person he should have been able to trust the most. Human trafficking has a very pervasive nature, yet it remains hidden in plain sight. It's hidden behind the smoke and the darkness, behind the faces of children in classes, in the locker rooms, at the bus corner down the street from you. It hides in the stories that are told to hide the truth and the shame and the guilt by those victims. Yes, Trevor's reality was he was sold into trafficking by his own family. Sadly, that's the truth for many trafficked victims. Most often, those who are trafficked are sold into trafficking by someone they know and trust, by the community leaders, by friends and family. And of those people, 30% of them are women. On that day, Trevor became part of a statistic. He joined a number he never wanted a part of. He became one of 300,000 boys and girls who are trafficked every year. 300,000 children trafficked in the United States alone. Of that number, it's amazing the numbers that are boys. I see confusion in many of your eyes. I see you thinking, no way, boys aren't trafficked. They're strong. They should be able to get away. It's not possible. But of that 300,000, nearly half, 144,000, are male. After being sold, Trevor tried to keep a normal life. He hung out with friends. He went to school, but he still had to keep up with his traffickers' demands. He still had a job to do. He faced judgment, and he grappled with depression and addiction. Sadly, he spiraled and he overdosed 3 times. Why don't we see that trafficking? Why don't we know it exists? I'll let you off the hook just a little bit. It's hard to know and see something when you're told it looks like one thing, but yet it is something completely different. When mainstream media doesn't tell you the truth, when they show you images that don't represent what it really is. Hollywood films and mainstream media often show us girls, dirty girls, tied up with rope and chains, attached to a bed or the basement wall. While it does happen, don't let me fool you, it does happen. Sadly, the numbers say it's about 2% of the entire trafficking numbers. I'm old enough that when I was growing up, stranger danger was the phrase we were all taught. We were shown images of kids playing in the park, out in the front yards, who were snatched away and thrown into vans, white windowless vans, in the hopes of cookies, candy, and puppies. They were lured away and thrown in those vans, never to be seen or heard from again. Films such as Taken are often also what people think of when they think of human trafficking. But this is how a trafficker operates. No, traffickers are much more sinister. They prey on vulnerabilities. They look for those people who feel lost, who feel like they don't belong. They look for those people who have had fights with their parents and can't figure out what they should do. They look for the people who want something that's just out of grasp. They want to look like those movie stars. They want to look like if they belong in a magazine. They want to feel like they belong. That's who traffickers look for. And traffickers are expert manipulators. Like I said before, by the time I met Trevor, he had overdosed 3 times. He had spent weeks and months in rehab, but not one program he spent any time in ever asked him about being trafficked, nor did they ever spend any time trying to help him rehab from trafficking, trying to help him recover from that trauma. So they'd send him back out on the street and he'd go back to the same trafficker and have the same issues as before. And as I listened to Trevor tell me these stories, calls that I had made as a paramedic and firefighter began running through my head. How many of those children, how many of those people, adults even, did I run on and have no clue? The home where I ran into that had 15 beds thrown in the living room floor, was that a home of trafficking? Did I just leave those poor people there to suffer for who knows how much longer? How many did I return to their predators? You see, as firefighter paramedics, we receive a lot of training. We do a lot of training every month, required by the state even. But there was none on human trafficking. There was none on trafficking or sexual abuse of boys at all. So when you tell me that you had no idea what to look for, I can believe you. Because as a trained professional, I had no idea what to look for. You can't look for something you're never told about. Trevor's narrative sheds light on manipulation, abuse, and betrayal by family, friends, and those we can trust. But despite those challenges, Trevor is resilient, courageous, and has found hope. And he's a testament to the human spirit and strength of the human in the face of adversity. We have to share Trevor's story. We have to amplify it and learn how to advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves because of circumstances. We have to become aware of the signs of trafficking. And then when we see them, we have to have the courage to act. Not all stories like Trevor's have a happy ending. Sadly, many trafficking victims succumb to overdose or even suicide. Those numbers are kind of unknown because we don't always know, because they're runaways or they're lost people who nobody's really looking for. Trevor's one of the lucky ones. Trevor found one of 2 safe homes in the United States for boys. In the 2 safe homes in the United States, there's less than 30 beds for that 144,000 boys trafficked every year. In contrast, there's more than 480 beds for long-term recovery for girls. So on a cold winter December day, I met 3 people who changed my life. 3 people who changed the trajectory of my work. Bob, Landon, and Trevor. Their stories and the stories they shared filled me with a deep emotion. They filled me with a desire to make a difference, an overwhelm of emotions, guilt for my past ignorance, and a newfound determination to take action. I had in passing one time mentioned to Bob that we should do a documentary. More of a joke than anything else, not knowing the stories at the time. But now, that passing comment to create a documentary, it now hangs in the room, filled with darkness and silence. It feels more like a fleeting idea. It feels like a calling and a goal worth pursuing. Trevor's journey and the experiences I had as a firefighter underscore the need for raising awareness, to break down the stigmas and provide a safe space for these boys to go and other trafficking individuals to heal and rebuild their lives. Those victims are all around us. We walk by them every day. The cost to our society is astronomical, but the ripple effects, those are devastating. When I was growing up, I used to hear an old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. I'd like to add something to that. Not only does it take a village to raise a child, but it takes an aware village to keep them safe. The call to action is simple. We have to become the aware village. We have to clear the smoke so that we can see the boys as the boys can see us, so they can have hope. We have to shine a light so they can see the way. #Boys2 is a documentary, and it's a start, but it needs help to become a reality. It needs help to become the fan to clear the smoke and a beacon of light to show them hope. It's a movement from the grassroots. Do you have the courage Trevor did? In the time I've been talking and you've been listening, 11 boys have been sold. That's 11 more than 10 minutes ago. It's not just an over there thing. It's an everywhere thing. It's not just a girl thing. It's a humanity thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melinda. Just want to acknowledge and honor you for the journey that you've come along on, taken us on and I know this wasn't easy for you, but thank you so much for raising our awareness. And I hope that everyone who is listening in, if you have ideas or thoughts of places where Melinda or any of our speakers can have an audience to raise awareness for their topics, that you share that with us. And as I said, we'll be sharing resources with you via email tomorrow, so you can help out with any of these causes that we've identified. We have one more speaker, and then I want to just speak briefly about speaking in case you were called. If you have a speech that you have in you that you'd like support around, I want to tell you a couple of different ways that we work with speakers. But we all need a little breath right now. We all need a little air. So our last but not least speaker is Megan Callis, and you'll understand why I'm talking about breath here in a moment. So Megan, take a moment while I there you go.
Thank you. And I invite everyone to do exactly that. Just take a breath. Take a nice breath. And send love to everybody. All right. I am on the cold, unyielding hardwood floor. My hands and knees bear my weight. My heart is shattering into a million pieces as I watch my tall, very handsome fiance walk out the front door. He casually has his suits over one arm, a large duffel bag over another. And with each step he takes, he not only abandons me, but my two daughters who love and depend on him. This man, who I had planned on spending the rest of my life, whose hand I held every night upon falling asleep, has decided that I no longer matter. I am paralyzed on this floor. I don't know how to move. I have forgotten how to breathe. My life has been riddled with quite a few traumas and challenges, events that would have me question my value, my worth, my own existence, my own reason for breathing. But through it all, I have discovered that our breath actually is an extraordinary tool to reground ourselves, recenter ourselves, and create an astounding resilience. My name is Megan Callis. My company is called Boundless Breath New Jersey. I am a science-based breathwork expert trained in respiration neurology, yet I also believe that there is a divine light in every human being and in all creation, and that there is so much more to our experiences than what we think. So journey with me again. I am 6 years of age, and I am sitting in a 70s style kitchen. On the walls is wallpaper with various fruits and vegetables. There is a large wooden spoon next to the cuckoo clock. My mother, who is now a rather frail and loving woman, the true testament to the power of change, is at this time what I call a rager, probably very similar to other women of her time who had no voice and therefore expressed their anger at home. My mother felt that children were to be seen and not heard. She felt that emotion was a weakness and that it was expressly intolerated in our household. Now, as a child, this was challenging because I was a child prone to very intense emotions, to tantrums, and a child who could not be contained. So I elicited an intense rage from her. Now, whenever I was not told what to do, or I did not do what I was told, or whenever those emotions came to the forefront, I would definitely elicit this strong emotion and anger from her. Now, in this particular instance, I was told to smile and I did not want to. And that did indeed bring about this intense rage. And so I held my breath as my mother told me to wipe the schmig off my face, grabbed that wooden spoon from the wall, and hit me so hard it splintered and broke. Fast forward about 10 years. That fierce and feisty little 6-year-old is not so fierce anymore. I'm attending high school with students of intense privilege. Mean girls rule the school. I decide that being seen is something that is best avoided. I begin to diet and I bring my 5'7" frame down to a skeletal 98 pounds. My breath becomes labored and undesired because even oxygen has weight. Fast forward again, about a decade later, and I have transmuted the pain from my childhood and my adolescence into a sheer determination. I have graduated from Tufts University with a master's degree, having studied biology and environmental policy. And I've taken a job defending endangered species in urban areas, protecting them from extinction. My breath now has purpose, and I am full of hope and aspiration. And I attend a political gathering convention in Atlantic City to forward my environmental organization's goals and agendas. That night, I am drugged and I am raped. I am so brutally broken, so shattered, and so full of shame. I question my entire existence because at this point, it feels like a complete mistake. I really no longer want to exist. I no longer want to breathe. And as I go through this story or these stories, I want to ask you, what happened to your breath? Did you hold it? Did it become faster? I'd love to know in the chat. Because what's extraordinary is that our breath is so much a reflection of our experiences, our emotions, our traumas. But what's astounding is the reverse also is true. That our breath actually impacts our emotions, how we feel, how we move through our world. Our breath, because we do it all the time, 25,000 breaths a day, we tend to take it for granted. We tend to dismiss its impact and its power. Yet it impacts every system in the human body. So not just the respiratory system, it impacts the digestive system, the immune system, the musculoskeletal system, the cardiovascular system. They're starting to discover that many heart conditions are actually due to poor breathing habits. And I bring this up because my mother is currently facing potentially fatal heart issues. She breathes through her mouth. And then she breathes at a pace that consistently stresses and strains her system. Ultimately, her breath may very well result in her heart's failure. Now, how you inhale and how you exhale determines your heart rate. It determines what neurotransmitters are released, what hormones are released in your body. It plays a role in cognition, memory, emotional states, sleep, perceptions of pain, perceptions of reality. When we breathe in a way that is longer, slower, when our exhales are longer than our inhales, it tells our brain that we're safe. It moves us from a nervous system that it can be full of that alert, fight, or flight state, which also happens when our experiences are traumatic, to a system that is based on rest, digest, that allows us to heal. So each breath we take can actually help settle our nervous system. It can help us move into a state of receptivity and deeper truths. And I want to tell you a little bit about those deeper truths. We've been hoodwinked and bamboozled. We've been told a bill of goods. We've been told that, or led to believe that the experiences that we have often are due to things that we have done wrong. Those relationship issues, those financial issues, those physical issues. We tend to blame ourselves. And we tend to push away the emotions that come up in those experiences, the frustration, the fear, the rage, the anxiety. But when we push that away, we're pushing ourselves away too. And I'll tell you, those challenges that we face in life, they're not punishment. As horrible as they can be, they also can be invitations to connect to deeper parts of ourselves, to others, and to a light that exists in all things. When life brings you to your knees, you kind of learn that there's a lot that's not within our control, that there are actually greater forces at work. It's like flowing down a river. You know, you can either go down that river and allow it to take you where it wants it to go, or you can struggle against that current. And when you rest in the awareness of your breath, you can start allowing life to show you, again, those deeper truths and those deeper experiences. So right now, I invite you, if it feels comfortable for you, to take a long, slow, deep breath. Take that breath deep down into your belly and let that exhale be a little bit longer than your inhale. Now take another breath, knowing that you can't mess this up, you can't do it wrong. Now, if it also feels comfortable, close your eyes. I want you to imagine yourself filled with light, a golden light. This light fills your body from head to toe, every cell, every molecule. Now imagine this golden light swirling all around you as well. It connects all that is. When you inhale, you're breathing in this light. You're breathing in this love, this life force, this divinity. When you exhale, you're bringing that life force back in, out into the world, back out into the universe. As you inhale this energy, this light, this divinity, you receive again this magical dance of light, of love, of giving and receiving. Every inhalation and exhalation are an invitation to infinite potential, infinite receiving, infinite love. Breath work helps you tap into this dance. It helps move you out of survival and opens you up to a peace, to health, joy that actually always dwells within you. Breathwork allows you to become a lighthouse, a beacon of light for the collective as we move towards a brighter, more loving world. Now, as I start to move towards the end of this talk, I face a little bit of a conundrum because people often come to me because they're looking for advice, they're looking for techniques, they're looking for steps forward. And I'm going to share something with you that very few in the wellness community are willing to say. You don't need to change. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to be healed. There is nothing wrong with you. And that the best thing you can do is to become aware of your breath. Breathe and know that every single cell in your body, every emotion that you experience, everything that you are is part of this oneness, of this light. You are so much more than you think you are. And every time you pause and rest in the awareness of your breath, you begin to find a peace that allows you to navigate the seas of life with grace, with gratitude, with a deep knowing that you are more than your traumas and your experiences. Every perceived misstep actually took you to this precise moment. So if you will, journey with me one more time. I am back on hardwood floor, but this time I am sitting on a Zafu meditation cushion. The smell of incense fills the air, and I am surrounded by others in robes. We are sitting in a beautiful Buddhist monastery. And while we are here, we are breathing and counting our breaths. I've gotten to the point now that I can actually get to 8 or 9 breaths without thoughts intruding. When I started, I could get to 1. A deep peace has started to permeate through me. I'm awed weeks later when I step out of the monastery and the angst and the traumas and the fears have dissolved. And I have stepped into a sense of oneness, of connectedness that I can't explain. I want you to recognize that it took me 30 years to realize that shifting my mindset, examining and taking apart my traumas, and beating back the anxiety and the fear was not the key to my peace. It was shifting my breathing, and with each breath, embracing and accepting every part of me, even the parts that I didn't necessarily like and the parts that I wanted to change. Let your breath be a reminder that your existence matters, no matter what happens to you. You are a divine expression. When you take a breath, you are waking up to a light inside of you. Your breath has purpose, just like you. Take a breath. Let it remind you that no matter what you are feeling, no matter what you are experiencing, you are an embodiment of light. And this world needs your light more now than ever. Your light, your brilliance transcends any perceived darkness or deep traumas. Breathe and know that you, exactly as you are the precise and precious beacon this world needs. Thank you.
Hey, everybody take themselves off mute and let's give all the speakers and Megan a nice round of applause. Megan, beautiful, beautiful storytelling. Thank you so much for,
Bravo.
Good job.
that was a masterclass. That was just wonderful. And thank you so much. I know how hard everyone has worked, you as well.
Roast is so good.
So
How do
good.
you
Straight
do
up very
that?
good.
How do
That's
you
the
do
best
that?
part.
How do you get that calming energy to permeate through?
Don't put your soggy. Sorry.
This is why Megan goes last, because this way everybody can take that nice breath
went so quick.
to their into bed tonight. So I don't know what to say. I'm not a father, but I'm a proud dad right now. My students, who have also been my teachers through these past few months,
Oh,
have done
is Eric? No.
what? Eric's here.
Sorry, that's my.
No, have exceeded all expectations. I am the luckiest guy in the world with the best job, because every day I get inspired and it gives me a reason for going to work. I love all of you, and just so proud. It just felt really kind of weird right now to do any kind of a call to action. But anyone who is listening to these speeches, who is interested in perhaps creating a speech of their own, please reach out to me at alan@alansamuelcohen.com, or my website, www.alansamuelcohen.com. Lots of different programs coming up. We'll send all of this out to everyone in an email tomorrow. I am just so full of emotion, and each one of you unique, diverse styles of storytelling, but such wonderful, fresh perspectives, and love all of you. And if anyone
Can I say a
2
few?
minutes. If anyone has anything else to say, I
We
want
want to hear from your inspiration.
So
He's told us many times that he's inspired.
by me.
Yes.
Oh, by
Well,
the spouse.
I don't want to get into me, but
Oh, I'm so sorry.
but I want to just tell you something, and I'm like the fly on the wall here because I'm like I'm a grown man. Every one of you got me like in tears. I think I'm a little bit teary right now. But I got to tell you, all of you who spoke, you know, my career has been in medicine, and I have been to many, many grand rounds, medical grand rounds, which is not only about medicine, but it's about life and social things. For instance, DEI, and unfortunately, I haven't been to any about trafficking, but I think that's something that should be on a grand round circuit. And I have been to many, many conferences where there have been keynote speakers talking about various topics. And I got to tell you, all 5 of you could, in my experience, could be keynote speakers. You drew me in. You were calm. You were collected. Your stories were riveting. I kind of didn't want them to end. I mean, I know I was like, oh, like I know this got to end like in 10 minutes, but you know, grand rounds goes for like 50 minutes. I could have sat and listened for 50 minutes. But your talks, and they were phenomenal. And you know, I would go to these conferences and I would listen to these speakers, and I would be very jealous because like I think I can't speak like that. Because but anyway, I can't speak like that. But I'm like, where do they find these people? Like, where do these find these people who speak like this? Well, I got to tell you, the 5 of you speak like them, and so kudos to you. I loved listening to your stories. I loved meeting you all. I really look forward to meeting you in person some point. But great job to all of you, and Alan, good work for you too. But everybody else who spoke, just phenomenal. I loved it.
Can I just say a few words? You know, being on the younger side, not necessarily calling anybody old here, but just being on the younger side, you know, I thought that in order for me to give an inspirational speech, that I needed to have more life experience, more of a story to tell. And I've told Adam this multiple times. This program, at first, I was like, I wasn't, you know, I'm very open-minded, so I wasn't against it whatsoever. But at the beginning, I was like, okay, where is this going? You know, where are we going with all this? With some of the exercises that we did, although they didn't make it to the final product, some of the exercises, I was wondering, like, what does this have to do with drawing up a speech? And honestly, Alan's got a gift. He did not pay me to say this. He's got a gift. From the moment that I sat down with him, my first time ever, he just drew it out of me. And it's not just about being able to tell your story or sharing a speech with the world. It's his way of coaching. It truly shows how much he cares. He's been there from the beginning to end, unconditionally giving us his time. And, you know, the stuff that I spoke about, my depression, my anxiety, those are things that I actually go through on a daily basis. Especially when speaking to people sometimes, I think to myself, why would anybody want to hear what I have to say? And thanks to Alan, I genuinely enjoy sharing my story with people. And it also makes me become more interested in people's story because Alan helped me realize that everybody's got something to tell, you know, and it could be entertaining, it could be informative, it could be sad, but everybody's got something to say. And I'm extremely grateful for you, Alan. So, and I'm extremely honored and proud of having done this with every single one of you guys. It was so incredible. I'm mind blown.
You all have stories, and keep telling them, keep sharing them. And with that, I'm going to let you all go to your families and your lives and your dinners and your pets and your vodkas, or you know, whatever it is that you've earned for this evening. And And with that, good night, everyone.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, be well,
everyone.
everybody.